As far as exciting and unique exclusives go, it doesn't get much better than what we have on the PlayStation 4, and 2018 promises to be no different. We've got a stacked lineup of unique and varied PlayStation 4 exclusives to be looking forward to, and in this video, we're going to be going over the top 10 upcoming PS4 exclusives in 2018. Let's get right into this. Number 10, Fist of the North Star. Fist of the North Star is seeing a video game adaptation, and this one actually looks really good. It's being made by the Yakuza developers, and it looks to be of the similar style of Yakuza. With Fist of the North Star, you would typically think of a Dynasty Warrior style game, and it's definitely got that action-heavy style of gameplay, but it's also got its side events and mini-games similar to the Yakuza series. You're gonna be wandering around town, obviously fighting off a lot of bad guys, but you'll also have side events, odd jobs, and mingling with the other inhabitants. Considering what the Yakuza devs have done in the past, expect Fist of the North Star to be really good. It's set for a release in Japan in 2028. We don't have any word on a Western release date, but you can expect it to come over at some point.
Shaka shaka shaka. Dozo. Let's go on. Hokuto, 百裂拳! お前はもう死んでいる。
Number 9, Earth Defense Force Iron Rain. Earth Defense Force has been one of those lower-key franchises that those that have played it have really enjoyed it. It's not perfect, it's not like it's got some amazing storytelling or world building or anything like that, but the gameplay is where Earth Defense Force shines. It's just a chaotic shooter where you have to fight off giant insects. It's a little zany and off the wall at first, but it's a lot of fun, and Earth Defense Force Iron Rain is actually taking it to a more serious tone. However, expect the gameplay to be as enjoyable as ever. It's set for a release sometime in 2018.
We're beyond the breaking point. But it's still too soon to despair. If you have a weapon, fight alongside us. As long as we're here, hope remains.
Number 8, Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. Dissidia Final Fantasy was one of the great spin-off Final Fantasy franchises. It took characters from every Final Fantasy game, put them all into one fighting game with great RPG mechanics and great one-on-one fighting gameplay. Dissidia Final Fantasy NT is changing some things up. It's more centered around team battles 3-on-3, where there is more of a strategic element in how you build your teams and the different styles of characters that you pick. It's being developed by Team Ninja, and it already released in arcades over in Japan, and it looks really great. Hopefully it's got a pretty good story mode to back it up as well, because the Dissidia games on PSP had really quality single player components as well. Dissidia Final Fantasy NT releases on January 30th. Number 7, Yakuza 6 The Song of Life. While the Yakuza devs are working on the Fist of the North Star game, Yakuza 6 released in Japan back in late 2016, but it's finally coming to the States next year. Yakuza 6 will follow the formula of previous games. It's an action-adventure game set in an open-world environment and played from a third-person perspective. It's got its exploration mixed with arcade-style over-the-top combat. Expect another mature and gritty story, great gameplay, and a lot of content. Yakuza 6 The Song of Life releases on March 20th. Number 6, Shadow of the Colossus Remake. The PlayStation 2 had so many great games, but one of the most iconic games without a doubt, possibly the most iconic and the best game, was Shadow of the Colossus, and now it's being remade ground up for the PlayStation 4. This isn't your typical HD remastering, as you can tell right away. We already saw that on the PlayStation 3. Rather, this entry of Shadow of the Colossus is a full remake built ground up for the PlayStation 4 with ultra high definition art assets, and is in development by Japan Studio and Bluepoint Games, and Bluepoint have actually worked on some of the other HD remasterings, but with Japan Studios' help, expect this to be on another level. We already know that Shadow of the Colossus is an amazing game that's timeless, and it's easy to replay that game. The only real issue with it on the PlayStation 2 was on a technical side, and now on the PlayStation 4, with the shackles being removed, expect the Shadow of the Colossus remake to be an amazing game. It releases sometime in 2018. Number 5, Days Gone. Ever since the PlayStation 4's release, we've been seeing developers reveal all of their games. One studio that had their game missing for a while was Sony Bend Studio. Those are the guys that worked on the Siphon Filter games, Uncharted Golden Abyss, and a couple other games. Their game was finally revealed at E3 of 2016 to be Days Gone, an action-adventure survival horror game set in a post-apocalyptic open-world environment. It's not the most original concept, think something of the like of Dead Rising. However, from a technical standpoint and the sheer amount of zombies that are on screen, this game looks insane. And technically, it's got things like a dynamic weather system and a day and night cycle, and those affect the gameplay itself. The zombies are weak and slow during the day, but fast and aggressive during the night. And from what we've seen of Days Gone, it looks like the game does have a pretty good narrative. We'll find out when the game finally releases in 2018.
Get it. Dinner time.
Number 4, Detroit Become Human. Detroit Become Human is the latest game from Quantic Dream, a staple studio to Sony platforms. They've worked on games such as Indigo Prophecy, Heavy Rain, and Beyond Two Souls. Indigo Prophecy and Heavy Rain were both fantastic games. Beyond Two Souls was a good game, but it did have its flaws. Detroit Become Human, however, is a very interesting game. It's a neo-noir thriller, and the plot revolves around 3 androids. Once again, you'll make several different choices throughout the game, and that'll shape the story of the game. In-game characters can die, and the story continues without them as a result. There is no game over. You can rewind to certain points of the story to reshape decisions, but the game will continue on. Quantic Dream games are very ambitious, and Detroit Become Human is possibly their most ambitious game ever. Let's hope it lives up to the anticipation when it releases in 2018.
North! North.
All right, what happened?
They slaughtered them like animals.
Who did?
Number 3, Final Fantasy VII Remake Episode 1. Now this is one that I'm a little hesitant that it'll be released in 2018, but we can have our fingers crossed, especially with the fact that the Final Fantasy VII Remake is confirmed to be released in multiple installments, so maybe we'll see Episode 1 next year. A remake of Final Fantasy VII is something gamers have wanted ever since going back to 2005 when Sony decided to show off that tech demo running on the PlayStation 3. Years would go by and we would hear nothing until finally at E3 of 2015 a Final Fantasy VII Remake was confirmed. So far, the little bit we've seen thus far has looked absolutely amazing, and the goal of the Final Fantasy VII Remake is to recreate the entire game with the visuals that we've seen so far. That alone is extremely ambitious for those of you that know how big of a game FF7 is. It's almost understandable the fact that this game is being released in multiple parts. I know that does kind of sting, but nonetheless, people are gonna buy it without a doubt, and maybe we'll finally get to play the remake in 2018, fingers crossed.
Okay, let's move.
Number 2, God of War. God of War is finally coming to the PlayStation 4 with a new entry dubbed just God of War. It is the sequel to 2010's God of War 3, but the game is considered a soft reboot for the franchise and will take the series out of Greek mythology and into the world of Norse mythology. Series protagonist Kratos is back once again, but now he's older and he has a son. He's taken on a different role. He acts more as a mentor and a protector to his son and has to master the rage that has driven him for many years. The gameplay we've seen thus far seems to be slower paced, but it's a nice change of pace for the franchise. Many have compared the stylistics of the game to something like Last of Us, and I can definitely see that. God of War by God of War Ascension was getting a bit stale. The formula works, but it needs a new fresh coat of paint, and this entry might be what the series has been looking for. God of War is expected to release Q1 of 2018.
Wow, that was something, that fight.
On our journey, we will be attacked by all manner of creature. To be effective in combat, a warrior must not feel for his enemy. Close your heart to their desperation. Close your heart to their suffering. The road ahead is long and unforgiving.
And finally, number 1, Spider-Man. For a long time, we've wanted a Spider-Man game up to the level of what Batman Arkham did for Batman, and it looks like we're finally going to be getting that in 2018. The new Spider-Man game is being developed by Insomniac Games, and for those of you that don't know, Insomniac has done some terrific games, the Ratchet & Clank franchise and Resistance to name a few. And Spider-Man is an action-adventure game set in an open-world modern-day New York City and played from a third-person perspective. You can use all of Spider-Man's abilities such as web-slinging and wall crawling, as well as new gameplay elements, one of which will be the ability to traverse using parkour. Environmental combat, quick time events, and stealth will also be featured in the game. And obviously from a technical perspective, just looking at the game looks absolutely amazing. And the game is telling a new story about Spider-Man that isn't tied to a film or comic, so it'll be a breath of fresh air. Spider-Man doesn't have an exact release date yet, but it is confirmed for 2018, and rumors have been circulating that it'll come in the first half of 2018. We'll see about that, but we'll finally get our hands on Spider-Man by Insomniac next year.
Hey, big guy. Is that a Higgs field? That's actually really cool.
So that wraps up the top 10 PS4 exclusives coming in 2018. What do you think? Which PS4 exclusives are you the most excited for? Did we forget to mention a game? Let us know in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.